Welcome to the Art Colony, a podcast about art and art history in Provincetown. My name is Gaston Lacombe. I didn't have the chance when I was growing up to study art. It just was not in the cards for me. But regardless, art made its way in, and now it's my profession. So nowadays, when I get the chance, I try to do some catching up by taking art classes. Thankfully, here in Provincetown, we are surrounded by many opportunities to improve our artistic skills. But oddly enough, the majority of the art classes I have taken have not been in Provincetown proper, but rather one town over in Truro at the Truro Center for the Arts at Castle Hill. There I have learned various printing skills that have helped me greatly in my work. So let's talk today about Castle Hill, as most of us refer to it. And let's talk also about Castle Hill's executive director and her art, Cherie Mittenthal.
Thank you.
How
Thank
are
you so
you?
much. I'm good. I'm very good.
So you know the first question. Who is Cherie?
Well, I'm an artist. I'm an activist. I am a maker of things. I really like to. I do mostly encaustic. I've been working a lot with mixed media, and in this last maybe 3 or 4 years, I've been working in metal and welding and clay. So I've been mixing clay with my encaustic, not with it, but like making things that attach to the surface of the panels. And I've been doing that kind of thing for a while now, a couple of years, 3 or 4 years. I'm executive director of Castle Hill, as you mentioned, and I've been there for 23 years this year.
Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah, it's a long time. And I started, it was summer only, and it was 60 classes, and now we're year round. We have an artist in residency program, and we also have workshops that happen in the off season, in the spring and in the fall, and a lot in the summer. So we have 175 classes we're offering this summer.
Oh, we're going to have a lot to talk about.
We have a lot to talk about. There's a lot of really good classes.
Yeah. So let's start at the very beginning. Where do we find your origins?
Well, I grew up in Connecticut, down in Norwalk, Connecticut, and I pretty much have always been an artist. I've always known I wanted to be an artist. I carried a sketchbook everywhere I went. I just drew and painted. I was a printmaking major in college. I went to the University of Hartford for undergraduate, and the Hartford and SUNY Purchase for graduate school, and both in printmaking, bookmaking actually, in printmaking. And I haven't done much printmaking since then, but mostly painting and other, like I said, a lot of different mediums.
Well, it's interesting because you do a lot of printing at Castle Hill. That's where I've done all my printing classes. And how did you get to Cape Cod?
I had a little cottage in Beach Point, and I think it was like the 20-year mark that we were going to move here and like retire. And then this job came up and I applied, and it was the last resume to come in, and I applied, and they came and they took me on, and it was a little risky for them. I'd never been the executive director. I'd been a director of programs before in Connecticut, in the Hartford area, but yeah, and I've been here, we've really grown a lot. A lot has happened there since 2002. So, yeah.
So 2002, you arrive at the Truro Center for the Arts in Castle Hill. What did it look like back then?
There was one computer. The person before me was not that big on technology or computers. Nothing was done, like all the registration was done on a pad of paper. So there was a lot of, infrastructure that kind of needed to be put in place, and, growing, having a little more staff. There was, I just assumed we were going to become year round when I started, because they kind of wanted to be year round, but they didn't know how to go about it. And so we did some interviewing and surveying the community to see what the community wanted. And that's kind of how we built the programs of different programs. Printmaking was one of them that we did in the winter. We had just bought the board right before I came on board. They bought One Depot Road in Truro, which was a couple miles down the road, and it had 2 classrooms on the first floor and a 2-bedroom apartment, and it had heat, whereas the barn didn't have any heat. So that was pretty early on. I felt like we needed to renovate the clay studio and have heat and kind of do work in there, because that felt like a studio that people really wanted to be in the winter, in the off season. So that was the first big kind of project that we did.
So when you got there, because currently you have like 2 campuses.
Right.
Were there 2 campuses then as well?
Well, there wasn't that campus. There wasn't Edgewood Farm. Edgewood Farm happened in 2016, so
Okay.
that was way later.
Mhm.
There was the One Depot Road location that when I came on board, and that had heat, and that so we had to, like, move my office every single year because my office is in the little tower.
That's what I
Um,
was so that's the place where you have the little tower.
yeah, the
Yeah.
little tower. That's like we call the main campus.
Do you know what that building used to be?
Yeah, it was a water tower that brought
Okay.
water to the neighbors, and there was this big cistern up on the hill, up on the top of the hill of that little bowl, and brought water to the neighbors.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now it's your office, you said?
Now it's my
Yes.
office. It's a very cool building. People come by driving around, looking at it, and take pictures all the time of it.
Yeah.
We've done a little work in there. It's 3 floors, so it's gets narrower as it goes up, and you climb up these stairs to get there. It's kind of beautiful. You have a water view of the Pamet River from the top floor, and even from the second floor, you could see the water. So it's kind of a unique and beautiful office. We put heat. We insulated from the inside, so we didn't have to. I mean, from the outside when we renovated the last time, so we didn't have to make the inside any smaller.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a sweet space.
So you have now, as you said, another campus that you opened in 2016, the Edgewood Farm.
Yes.
And that's pretty expensive. There's a lot going on there.
That was a big game changer for us.
Yeah.
That was, we had been really growing out of our seams there at the main campus. This opportunity came, somebody, one of the relatives who owned that property, Malcolm Meldal, came to me and said, my mother, who just passed away, wanted Castle Hill to buy this for below market value. That was the line they used, which was 1.7 million,
Mhm.
1.8 million. And we were like, okay, like we should totally, like, oh my God, it's the most beautiful, beautiful campus. And
It is.
when I moved to town in 2002, I was looking for a framer to get some of my work framed, and I ran into Deborah the Framer. I call her Deborah the Framer, conservation framing. She was like, no one has ever found me in the yellow pages. And she was in the basement of Edgewood Farm. And I was like I drive down this long driveway, and I get there and I'm like, holy cow, what is this place? It's amazing. And she gave me a tour, and it was just so nice. And I was like, when this opportunity came up, I was like, oh my God, we have to do it. We totally have to do it. So it took me 3 years to raise the money to do it. We partnered with the Truro Conservation Trust. So there was 4 lots, and 2 of them had all the buildings on them. One of them had all the buildings on, and the other one was kind of the lot down below, which is still undeveloped. So we have like 4 acres of undeveloped land. People are like, Cherie, you can't make it. You can't build anymore right now. Because, there's room to grow, and we still want to grow. Housing might be one of the areas we might want to grow a little bit. But anyway, that was a pretty major game changer for us. And then the Truro Conservation Trust bought 2 lots as well. And their lots are inaccessible, but they created paths that went up through the dunes, up through the woods, and behind the property. So they're all marked, and you could at the end of Route 6, there's a little parking lot, and you could park there and kind of walk the perimeter of Edgewood. And then you get to the top of the hill, and there's a little bench, and you could see Ballston Beach from the top of the hill. It's really beautiful throughout, and there's a lot of trails. It's like all like secret trails everywhere.
Yeah.
Really, really nice. And we've probably put in, I would say at this point, close to $2 million in renovating. Like, a lot of work has had to have been done in the buildings. They're old buildings. We got them on not the National Registry of Historic Places, but the Massachusetts cultural assets for the state. So we're part of that. This property Manuel Corey was one of the first administrators in Truro, and he lived there. So one of the buildings was called the Manuel Corey House. We named one of the rooms after him, and so it's a really historical, kind of beautiful space. It was the first apple orchard on Cape Cod.
Does it still have apples?
Well, there's one apple tree left.
Okay.
Yeah, there was one in front of the print shop, and we did the whole renovating of the print shop and kept this one apple tree. And after the building was in, like literally 6 or 8 months later, the tree kind of just went. So they might have hit some sort of root or something.
Yeah, maybe.
But, they kind of go for a long ways, those roots. But I was really bummed about that tree. But we do have one other tree. It's kind of like tucked in. There was other fruits there was a couple other fruit trees there as well. But it was a pretty historic farm. It had animals. It had chickens and duck, and I don't think it had duck. Probably had ducks, but it had chickens and it had pigs. And they did grow root vegetables, but chickens was a really big thing. And last year, actually, it was the coolest thing. The Huffles, who lived in that house in probably between the 30s and the 50s, they lived there for a while. And he was a local doctor. He was the town pediatrician, and he made house calls, and people came to the house. And so the family comes back like every year to come visit us and look at the place and see what we did, and like, oh, ooh, ah, kind of thing. And last year they showed up and they brought this huge crate, this beautiful wooden, not crate, but box, just a box, and it said Edgewood Farm on it, and it was painted this gorgeous yellow color, and it had this like writing on the inside. So they shipped eggs to Boston every week or something. So it was like the address to mail the box back at the end of the dropping off of the eggs. And the box has been in California for the last, like, I don't know, 30, 40, maybe 50 years or something. And they brought it back they thought it felt like it should be at Edgewood Farm.
It's history.
So, totally history. It's like this egg box. It's like, I've never heard of such a thing.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So at the farm now, I've only really seen the printing lab, which is high tech.
Beautiful.
It's big. You have a lot of space to work in, great windows. What are the other buildings?
When we built the printmaking studio, so when we first bought the place, the printmaking studio was the next building over. And we turned that building into a wood shop, a sculpture studio and wood shop. And so we have like a pretty state-of-the-art wood shop now. We've never really had a space to do really good like size sculptures or wood or whatever. So that became the wood shop. And then behind that is a welding pad. So the last 2 years, we built that welding pad and we put a big roof over it so you could be kind of outside and weld, and you're not getting too hot, and it's kind of a beautiful space back there. And then above the printmaking studio is a painting studio, which is kind of nice, really nice actually. And then in the barn, which is mostly housing, there's another studio up there with two areas to work in. But it's also kind of a nice space, and there's a gorgeous, like, it's outside one of the bedrooms, so it's kind of nice when you're a resident. You can like roll out of bed and go right into your studio, kind of thing. It's a beautiful, and that used to be also good historical. It used to be it was one of the first speakeasies in Cape Cod. So that building was a speakeasy in I think it was like the early 1900s.
Can you somehow still see some of that history?
Yeah, there's still a little door, like a secret door, where you like put in your secret handshake or your words, like ish lips or whatever you had to say to get in. We actually did a speakeasy there once, like in 2014. We brought Zoe Lewis, and she brought her speakeasy over. It was really great. I'm gonna bring that back someday. But yeah, it was good.
And there's a pottery studio as well, right?
There's a pottery kiln that's at Edgewood that we built, a wood-fired kiln. We were up at the seashore and we moved that. It was kind of at the end of its life, and we built it over at Edgewood. But the main part of our clay program is at the main campus.
At the main campus.
Yeah.
And at the main campus, you also recently acquired you expanded it even.
We did.
Yeah.
That's also a big game changer for us. So Castle Hill's been around for this is our 54th year this year. Next year is 55. And we owned just the barn and the tower for most of that life. And then at the 40th year anniversary, we bought 12 Meeting House Road on 12/12/12 at 12 o'clock. And that was like, it wasn't a really exciting, like everybody thought we already owned it. It's like in the middle of our campus. It was like a contentious owner next door, never wanted anyone to park there, but everybody parked there because it was the only empty spot in the lot. And so we bought that in 2012. And then just this past year, the White House, which is the big front house, which was the owner of like that whole property it's been in the same family for 150 years. So it was C.W. Snow, who built a lot of houses, amazing, big, beautiful houses in Truro. He built that house, and he built the barn as well. And I don't know if he built the tower. He might have built the tower. But he definitely built the house. And so it went on the market for the first time ever. And we were like, we have to buy it. Like, really finishes the whole campus. So we're 10, and the other place was 12, and this was 8. So now we're like the whole corner. And that is a 5-bedroom house. So we used it for staff housing this past summer, and we have staff housing still in it, living in it this winter. And then it came with 2 outbuildings. One was a 2-car garage, and one was the bus barn that used to be the garage to the bus at the Truro bus in the 30s. So it's like a long, skinny, beautiful kind of concrete building, block building. The guy was C.W. Snow was a concrete master. Like that was his like specialty. So if you look under the house, there's like these beautiful arches, which I've never seen in a house anywhere. It was like this was his house, so he made it kind of special. Um, and then the 2-car garage we just renovated into a gallery last spring. So we've been doing a lot of work in both campuses. Right now, I'm in the middle of a huge deck that we're putting in front of the printmaking studio and the wood shop, and kind of connecting those 2 buildings, because I always felt like, they were like not talking to each other. They were like at their own separate thing, and this is a way to both bring the buildings together, but also to provide a handicapped accessible access to the stage. So we built in 2022, I believe, we built a stage, Sam's stage, in the middle at the bottom of the meadow. And that was always what we wanted to do there, because it's like this perfect sloping land and grounds for a stage, like little mini Tanglewood. And we wanted to do dance, and we've been doing the dance. This will be our 20th year of the Provincetown Dance Festival
Okay.
that we produce.
Oh, yeah, there's so much going on there. It's incredible.
Yeah, no, we have a lot. We have a lot going on. It is pretty amazing. We're using it all. We are, the stage. I mean, obviously the stage isn't, being used in the winter, but we've been growing the stage. It's, kind of not in our comfort wheelhouse, because it's, performance, and we do mostly visual arts and writing. But we've been doing more stuff with the stage, and with we have this amazing dance festival. We had like Robert Pinsky did poem jazz last summer, and we have readings and talks and stuff that are on it, and a band now and then. So it's a beautiful space, and the light is perfect. Like at 6:00, and then at night the sun is like going down behind the trees, and it just lights the stage really beautifully.
Welcome back. I'd like to remind you to follow us on Instagram at the Art Colony Podcast. And also remember that you can support the podcast by leaving us a little tip at buymeacoffee.com. I'd like to thank Leslie with an IE, Leslie with an EY. We had 2 Leslie donors this time around. And Tom for leaving us little tips at buymeacoffee.com. So you can go and just look for the Art Colony Podcast there and help us keep this little podcast going. So, Cherie, I find it very interesting that at Castle Hill, you bring forward so many sort of less popular arts or less traditional arts. I don't know how to say that. Because usually we think, we're going to do painting, we're going to do drawing, but you've named so many wonderful things, welding and wood carving and all these things. Um, is this part of your mission to promote all the arts?
It's funny you ask that, because that's always been one of those things. We've always done it all.
Yeah.
But some people say, do we do too many things? Should we focus on less? Should we try to just zoom in on? But people like to do different things. And the thing about Castle Hill that's cool is that people, you can come in any stage you're at in your artistic career. So if you're a beginner, you're welcomed as a beginner. And if you're an advanced person in the same class as a beginner, you're welcomed in that way as well. So it's non-threatening, and it's non-competitive really. And it's just like try to be comfortable for people to do their work. Um, you know, we do a lot of different things. Sculpture has been an area that we've really spread out and tried new different techniques. We have Elsbeth Hay this summer. She's doing a basket weaving class. I mean, she's been studying how to do that, and she's been like gathering willow, and that's like a cool thing. And I've been kind of following her. She actually did a artist residency at one point, a writing residency, and she wrote a book. And then she's been traveling a little bit, and she just started doing this weaving, and they're beautiful baskets. So we brought her in. We've also been doing some cooking classes,
Oh, wow.
which have been great. Michael Ciraldi's taught in the past. We have a woman, Sadie Hill, who's teaching a mozzarella class that just sold out. In the summer, we have we have a Mexican street food class. So the food things go really well. Like they're always, and it's a little tricky because, we have this gorgeous stove in the wood shop at Edgewood. It's like not the greatest to like be cutting wood and then have a class in the same week, but we've worked it out so we don't actually have the workshops happening during the times we do
And wood
cooking
saw it,
classes.
wood shavings as seasoning.
Exactly. Wood shavings is, never so good.
Yeah.
The only thing we're not doing right now, and I don't know if we'll bring it back at some point, I hope we will, but I'm not 100% sure, is jewelry.
Oh,
We've had a pretty great jewelry department, but it was upstairs at the main campus. And we decided that we only did 2 jewelry classes a year, every year for millions of years. But we decided, it's not the best use of that space. So we built a hand building studio, a clay studio upstairs, and that is used all the time. So we have less places for things to land when we need like junk, like another room to like put stuff. So we lost that room for that, but it's really nice to have a hand building studio. And jewelry is now sitting in a storage unit, like at Edgewood, that we have to build a new building for to make jewelry, to do jewelry in, I think. But it's not that huge of a loss, really. We had really nice equipment, and I don't really want it to go bad, so I do want to figure out what to do with it. Um, but it's good. We're doing a few different things this summer. We're doing a wellness week, well-being week. We're doing sound bowls, and there's a yoga class, and there's just a couple different things like that. And we're also doing a kind of a week thing that's a digital photography week. We're like the only darkroom left in Cape Cod.
oh.
We were gonna rip it out, and then all of a sudden people were like, "Why are you ripping out the darkroom?" Everybody's like they ripped them out and they're putting them back in because they
I was
realized
just having a discussion this morning with another artist about the fact that she doesn't have access to a darkroom anymore.
yeah.
I
Well,
should tell her about that.
yeah, tell her about Castle
Yeah.
Hill. It's a great little darkroom. Actually, Marion Roth helped set it up in the early '70s. So she's been involved in Castle Hill for a long time, or late '70s, I think it was. But it's not a bad dark room. It's a nice dark room. We've renovated a little. We made it a little smaller, and we kind of put a few different sinks in there, and we have like 7 enlargers, and kind of sweet in there. But we have this digital art. Everything's moving more to digital, as you all know. Everybody knows. So it's a really interesting week of, you could do like 1 3-hour class, or you could do 10 different 3-hour classes. So it's like the week, there's like in the morning and an afternoon session. And it's like how to use your iPad, how do you draw with, that drawing program.
Procreate.
Procreate. There's a Procreate. There's a thing on how to use Photoshop and digitals, different things like that. So like there is really something for everybody. Um, how to work on Instagram. Like, you think everybody knows how to do that, but a lot of people actually don't. People are weird they're scared about Instagram if they're
Mhm.
not an artist or something. So that's a class that we're doing. And then clay is probably the biggest. Clay and painting are our biggest areas. Clay is much more year round. We have 4 classes a week happening in the winter, all through the off season, and then in the summer they turn to week long. And we have great people coming from everywhere. We have Kensuke Yamada, who's an amazing Japanese artist. Mark Shapiro, who's really wonderful. There's just a good list of, if you want to throw, if you want to do hand building, you can really do anything.
You mentioned in passing a few times a residency.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So when we bought Edgewood Farm, that was our we've always I always wanted to do an artist residency where people could come and live and just have time and space to work. So we didn't have much going on in the off seasons except for like plotting out the summer. So like now is the time we're like, getting the catalog ready. Um, so we had like October, November, December, and March, April, May. So it's like almost 6 months worth of time for people that we could use in the studios. So we started in 2017, I think in the fall of 2017, we started an artist residency program at Edgewood. People could live there. We didn't quite have enough studios. We didn't have the new printmaking studio yet. So that provided upstairs and down. And now we're almost like, not everybody gets their own studio, but they get a shared space most of the time. And people love it. And people come back here. A lot of times they come back, every other year, or every once in a while they'll come back every year, like they love it.
And you have artists in all sorts of fields
Yeah.
doing these residencies?
Yep, painting, drawing, printmaking, sculpture. Sometimes and right now we actually have a clay, and then in the off season, in January, February, and March, we have clay residents that are here for 3 months, because that's like 2 weeks to a month is not long enough for clay, really. So we have We have people coming that are here right now, and they end at the end of March. And they're a really great group. That two different artists that come, and usually for that residence, it's more of like an emerging artist. So they're either, just out of college and they're looking to figure out what they want to do next, kind of thing. So they're younger.
And with all the snow we've been having, they had to stay in place and concentrate because they couldn't move much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, one is from Chicago, and she was so excited to see all this snow. It doesn't really snow as much in Chicago. I had no idea.
Oh, I would imagine they have a lot.
I know, me too.
But does the fact that you are in Truro affect sort of the feeling and the way things work? Because, Provincetown, we think the art colony, we think Provincetown. But you're like right next door is in Truro. How does that affect sort of the way you're perceived or the way the place functions?
Well, it's funny, there are a certain amount of Provincetown people who don't want to go to Truro because it's so far, like 9 miles away.
It's all of 5 minutes.
Exactly. So there's a funny little thing about that. But once they get there, they're like, oh my God, why haven't I ever come? Like people, I think the real big difference is space. There's just a lot of room. The studios have space around them. Now we'll have a deck outside of print. But it's like you're not on top of each other, there's a little bit more space to do what you want to do kind of thing. And you can go walk in the woods and, kind of be right there. I think that, there's a lot of famous Truro people that, went back and forth, in the early days all the time, a lot of them lived in Truro and worked in Provincetown.
I mean, Edward Hopper.
Yeah.
Pretty much the biggest name in American art. He lived in Truro.
Yeah, he lived in Truro right up on the dune.
Yeah.
So there's Motherwell's buried in Truro.
Hans Hoffman is
also buried right up on the hill of Castle Hill. The Methodist. Is it the Methodist? That beautiful cemetery up by the town hall.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's a weird thing with people. Either you don't have a car, I get that, or like Truro is so far, and it's really not.
No, it's not far at all.
Yeah.
So, as the executive director, do you get to practice your art as well in all these beautiful studios? Do you get to make stuff?
The only thing I really do at Castle Hill to make stuff in is the welding studio. So I just started welding just like 3 or 4 years ago. So I love it. I totally love it. And it's kind of the kind of thing I don't really have room in my studio here to do it in, because I don't have a floor it's a wooden floor. I think you kind of want a concrete floor and that kind of thing. It's just too small for welding. So I'm happy to do it outside at Castle Hill. But yeah, it's tempting, especially when I first moved here. Like I wanted to be in all the studios and clay. I was in the clay. I took a lot of clay classes early on, and now I'm doing clay in my studio. I have a studio in Provincetown on Race Point Road, 4243 Race Point Road over there by Garden Renovation.
Okay,
Garden Restoration.
I think is that called the Patrick Studios?
No, that's on Route 6. This is over by where Connie's Bakery used to be.
Okay.
In the day.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Cosmos Catering is over there.
You have the whole gardening center there.
Yeah, the garden center.
Okay,
that's the
over there.
I was talking about. Yeah. Yeah. So my studio is over there, and it's a great studio. There's 6 studios in this building. And there's a potter, and there's me, and there's a photographer guy, and there's a woman who's never there. Nobody's ever there. It's like me and one other person, and it's lovely to be there. And I'm usually there on the weekends, so I work all week, and sometimes I get it together to go at night, but most of the time I have Fridays off in the winter, which is like the best thing ever. And so I spend usually all day Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in the studio.
And when you are away from all these responsibilities and all the papers and the computers, what are you making?
Well, I'm painting and I'm doing some clay things. I just got this really cool owl that just came out of the kiln today. It's like about this big, and it's kind of its head comes off, and kind of a cool little owl. I got into this bird thing in the last year. I've been doing birds for a really long time, but in my paintings. But then I started doing 3-dimensional birds, and we made this secret path that came from the clay studio over to the new gallery, which you haven't seen because it was covered in snow for the last couple of weeks.
Well, is that where you had an opening a few weeks ago?
Yeah.
I was there.
So you went to the opening to the gallery, but there's this little path that goes up, and we were going to do this walkway with this path, and there were these posts, and we were going to do a railing on both sides. It was a little overkill. So I was like, you know what, those posts could use a bird on them. So I made a bird for every one of the posts. So That was kind of like my bird moment. And then I just decided to keep doing them. So I just made this. I never made an owl before, so I was kind of excited about the owl. I'm more of a hand builder. I do mostly coil kind of work.
That
And
means you take the clay and you make it into like a big long sausage and you coil it?
yep,
Okay, yeah.
you roll it. And,
Uh-huh.
yep, yeah, yeah. And you can make anything with a coil, really. That's kind of fun. But I work mostly in encaustic, which is a hot wax that's mixed with Damar resin, which comes from a tree, and beeswax and pigment. And it's the percentages. You mix it all together. You can buy a chunk of it that's already made, a color that you make, or you could also make it yourself. And it's a beautiful material. I love it. It smells good and it's very forgiving. It has lots of potential. You could, you could scrape into it. You could embed photos in it. You could attach things onto it. You could, it's really very endless. And you could, there's like hundreds of layers and you never know what's underneath and what shows up and what doesn't. And it's kind of a beautiful material. It's an old material that kind of had a rejuvenation in the kind of late 80s. But it was, they used it for mummies 2,000 years ago. So they were covering mummies with it and preserved the bodies inside, I guess. Um, so those beautiful found mummies in Egypt were all with encaustic
Wow.
colored.
So encaustic has always been a bit of a mystery to me because I've never seen it actually being made.
Mhm.
So walk me through the process. So you start with a canvas or piece of wood
You start with a panel.
with a panel.
Yeah,
Okay.
you don't really want to people do sometimes do thin coats on canvas, but you don't want it to really move like a canvas moves.
Okay.
You want it to be hard, like a firm surface. So you work with a panel and then you put medium, which is a beeswax and Damar. Damar is the thing that Damar does is it hardens the wax. So it's if you just use beeswax, which smells really great, it stays soft. Like you always stick your fingernail in it and you could kind of maneuver it a little bit. But with the Damar, it hardens it enough that it's on the surface. It's not going to melt off. It's not going to, so you have a palette that is to about 180 to 200 degrees. And you melt all these little cups or however you want to melt it onto the palette, the wax, the pigment. And then you take a brush and you stick it into the hot wax and you paint it onto the palette, onto the panel, onto the substrate. And in between each color, each layer, you fuse it with a torch. So it fuses to the layer below it. So um, it just hardens the layer in between so you can keep building on it.
But even if as you were saying, you can embed photos in it,
Yeah.
the torch won't burn the photo?
No, I mean, you have to be careful. You don't
Yeah.
want to hold it too close. You can also use a heat gun. I
Okay.
just don't use I'd prefer using a torch because it's faster and it's, I'm aware.
It's more dramatic.
It's very dramatic and yeah, it's a little bit faster moving, but and the heat gun sometimes takes a little longer to kind of get it to do what you want it to do, and it also takes. And I used to blow fuses when I used the heat gun and the palette together, so I would blow fuses. So this doesn't. I don't blow fuse when I use the torch. And then you could scrape into it. You put color. Then you could start putting color down after you put the medium. Is usually the first few layers of medium. You could draw through it. You could, you can't really take a pencil to it once the wax is on it. But if you put something flat over it, you could. Like if you added chalk or something, you could then draw on it. So it really is it's a really beautiful material. I I saw a piece in a gallery somewhere, I think in Boston, and I was like, "Oh, what is that?" And it was like encaustic, and I had no idea what it was. It was like 2000 and probably 2000, maybe 2001. And I was like, oh my God. So I looked it up and I found this company that made it, R&F Paints, and I bought one and I carried it around for like a year or two. And I was like, I don't know how to use this. And I looked it up on YouTube and it was like kind of very sketchy. It wasn't quite, YouTube wasn't really quite around yet.
Yeah.
And everybody who was teaching it was doing it wrong. And, it was like terrible. So I called the company who made the paint and I said, and this woman, Laura Moriarty, answered the phone. And I was like, do you guys teach classes? Would you come to Castle Hill and teach a class? And they were like, oh my God, I love Cape Cod. I'll come. She was on phone. She's like, I'll come. So she came and taught like a 2-weekend class and I took it both weekends and I've been doing it pretty much ever since.
And
So-
encaustic you can create this incredible depth with it.
Yeah.
You can see through it, and
Yep.
it's not just a flat surface. You can almost have like a 3D experience with it.
Right.
Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah. You could see through it. You could also make it opaque completely, and you can
Uh-huh.
make it transparent as well.
Yeah, I had the same sort of experience. First time I saw encaustics was here in Provincetown. Well, I guess it was in Provincetown. It was during the encaustic, what do you call it? The
The conference, International Encaustic Conference that we
International
produce.
Encaustic Conference in 2017. I first of all, I was like, what is this? I don't know what it is. What is encaustic? And then I had never seen this before. So it was really intriguing for me. But yes, we have this thing, the International Encaustic Conference. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So it started, this is the 19th year. And Joanne Matera is the founder of it, and she started it, and it was at Montserrat College for about 5 years. And then they had a huge falling out, and Facebook was kind of just starting, and it was like, everybody was fighting with Montserrat. How could they treat Joanne this way? And it was really bad what they did. It wasn't good. So I immediately called her up and said, Joanne, let's do it at Castle Hill. Like, and she was like, but it was too small at the time to really do it at Castle Hill. So we did it at the Provincetown Inn. People stayed there, and we had all the breakout rooms, and we had 100 to 150 people come from all over the world. And it's still happening. We moved it to Edgewood Farm last spring. It happens the first weekend in June. So this year it's actually May. It's always the week before Memorial Day. So I'm sorry, the week after Memorial Day.
Yeah.
After Memorial Day. So
and this week we have this year we had this strange week after Memorial Day that's still in May.
Yeah, it's like, because this is like the 29th, 30th, 31st. So it's like the last weekend in May. It's always the first weekend in June. But that's fine. It gives us a little extra time in June to do our thing. And it's it's a great conference. It's not just about encaustic. It's also just like being a professional artist. How do you show in a gallery? How do you, how do you box your work? How do you do, there's like a how-to piece to it. So there's demos and talks. So each hour or so, each hour and a half, there's 2 talks and a demo. And you could pick the things you want to go to. And last year, and then we rented a big tent in the meadow at Edgewood. And so like all the lunches happened under the tent, and the keynote speaker happened under the tent. And so I was so nervous about doing it there, but it ended up being so much better than at the Provincetown Inn. The Inn was tricky that the year before we moved it, because they had just gotten under new ownership, and they weren't really ready for us. We were like the first ones out. Their kitchen wasn't open, and it was terrible. But they got it together now.
There's no real other place to eat near the Provincetown Inn.
Yeah, so
it's a bit of a walk to get downtown.
Yeah, exactly. And people came back, but they dealt with it okay. We had worked it out with the cabs if you couldn't walk, and we worked it out with all the restaurants to get little discounts from the restaurants. And we had 100, a lot of people come to town, and so the conference is on that weekend, and then we have 4 days of pre-conference workshops before the conference, and then 4 days after the conference workshops. So people are doing all sorts of really cool things. So you could do a 1-day, fresco and encaustic class, which is a very cool class. The person's from Switzerland who's teaching it, and it's already sold out. I think maybe 1 spot left, but it's a really amazing class. There's also how to work in sculptural with wire and encaustic. So creating this embouchure of some sort, and then covering it with paper, and then covering it with wax. And so there's all sorts of cool, things that people are doing. Working with texture, you could make something really, really textury with encaustic. You could make something completely flat and smooth and gorgeous, or you could, so you could really do a combination of both of those things. So we have 20 classes that we're offering pre and post. It's been a tricky last year and this year, I think, with this, especially this year, I think, with people being a little worried about coming to this country. So we've lost a lot of our international people, but we do have somebody coming from Ireland, and we have somebody coming from, we have a couple of people coming from Italy, and then the woman from Switzerland who's coming back. She didn't come last year. She was so nervous, and a lot of Canadians usually come, but now the Canadians are doing their own, and they're kind of they don't want to come over here. Very afraid, the Canadians, of coming to the United States.
All that's very unfortunate.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
But for the Encaustic Conference, is this all levels? If somebody's never done it before, can they go and just get acquainted with it?
Yeah, totally. Like there's a beginner kind of intro-y thing on the first session of the thing of the conference. So Friday morning there's a session, but there's anybody could kind of most of the people who come are kind of mid-career artists, mostly women for some reason. I don't know why that is, but last year we had a mix of maybe we had 5 guys or 6 guys, but it was like you have like 200, like a lot of people, and then there's 5 guys. So it's kind of a funny little thing. We always kind of wondered what that's about, but haven't been able to figure it out.
So if I look at my calendar here rapidly, this episode is going to air on February 23rd. So do people still have time to register for this conference?
Yeah, totally. They could register. It's open. We started the early bird special, but we decided to just keep it at that price. So it's $395 for the full weekend, and then the classes are over and above that. And then we worked it out with the Harbor Hotel, where people can come and stay at the Harbor Hotel, and they get a good price.
Which is the closest one to Truro.
Which is the closest one to Truro. Yeah, it's not as far as the Provincetown Inn. I think they're a little sad, but they're owned by the same company, and everything is owned by the same.
So what's the deadline for registration?
There's no deadline. Well,
Okay.
by May, probably cut it off. But anybody could come. It's open to the public. It's we also kind of are working on putting together some shows associated around the conference. We always did that in Provincetown, and I'm looking to do more like in Wellfleet this time since we're in Truro, and we'll have a big juried show in the Castle Hill Gallery. That is kind of the gallery show that's part of the conference. And then we've done a couple little shows. We have like this, I don't know if you've ever been to Gallery 10, which is like a teeny little space that's across the parking lot at Castle Hill. It's the library. And it was actually built in a class in like 1989, a week-long class. They built this little cottage thing, this little shed or shack or whatever. Now people would live in this little thing. But it's a sweet little space. It's just like, small works and, but it has a good feel in it. And the other half is books, and you can like hang between the books and the shelves and stuff.
So if anybody would like to learn more about the conference, where should they go on the internet?
If they go to castlehill.org, and then right on the front page, there's a little button for the International Encaustic Conference.
And if someone has never done encaustic before, what would you tell them to encourage them to try their hand at it?
What class should they do?
I mean, for example, me, I've never done encaustic.
Yeah.
How would you convince me to start doing it?
Well, Edie Beatty is her name, Edith Beatty, and she's doing a beginner class. But a lot of the classes you don't have to be totally a beginner, but she teaches a really like start to like how to put it on the palette, how to like everything. So I would recommend you start with a beginner class, and you really get the basics, and you really get, how to do it right. Because there's a lot of misinformation online, even, like so much misinformation. People are melting crayons, like really bad stuff. Things are flammable. Like it's not good. You don't want to be melting crayons. It's not what encaustic is. And we talk about safety, and we talk about content. We talk about, materials. And so it's important, the safety about it. You don't want to crank it up to, over 200 degrees, because that's not good to breathe. But it's fine in any other, it's good to have a little ventilation, a little fan blowing while you're working, but it's not toxic like people, because it's caustic, the word. People think it sounds like it's toxic. It's caustic, but it's not toxic at all. And it's, mostly beeswax.
I heard somewhere you're going to do something about the art of protest.
Yes. So our big Woody English Distinguished Artists and Writers Chair this summer is an artist named Julie Pepito, and she is from New York. She lives in New York, and she's going to be talking about how artists can get involved in protest. How do you organize that? What do you do? How do you bring people together? What do you make? How do you make things? What are we going to do? Like, we can't just sit here and not not fight back somehow. So this has been on my mind for a long time, actually, in the last year and a half or whatever it is, and how we can do more as a community. And artists are always in the front line. We are always out there. So I'm very excited about this talk. She's going to talk. It's July 7th at Edgewood. And then we're also going to do it, I think the next day, a day of making. So we'll have a lot of cardboard, and we'll just have paints, and people can just come and make signs or something. Maybe we'll have a project. So I'm very excited about that. And we're going to maybe partner with Indivisible Cape Cod, maybe Indivisible Provincetown. and some other groups. So it's going to be interesting.
I know one of your employees will be really excited about this, Mike Sullivan.
Yes, Mike Sullivan will
Yeah.
be very excited about that one.
Yeah, he's your director of, what is it?
He's our studio manager in sculpture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know he's been very involved in the protest movement here lately. Mike is a bit of one of my mentees. I've been sort of his mentor for the last
nice.
almost 10 years now. So
really?
I feel so proud of Mike and all he's
nice.
done, and knowing that he works with you I'm even prouder.
Yeah, no, he's great. He's a wonderful artist and a great employee.
Yeah, you attract great people there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's the best staff I've ever had right now, and let's hope we keep them all. It's a difficult thing when it's hard out here. It's expensive to live, and so it's one of those things. Try to keep the people with us. It's not easy for us nonprofits out here.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna now move on to the speed round.
Oh.
Yeah. So for the speed round, I ask you a this or that question, and you have to pick one.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Printing or painting?
Well, I love printmaking. But I really, I like the more of an immediate thing instead of cutting the block and then printing it. And then, even though I love the surprise of the block and I love it all, but right now I'm more into painting.
Working in plein air or working in studio?
In studio.
Yeah. Because the type of work you do, it doesn't really translate to.
No, though I did have an encaustic plein air class, and she had these pallets, these like things that you brought when you went camping, like a camping thing. Heated with everything was with a torch, and it was actually a really great plein air class, and you could do it actually outside. It was very cool.
Even if it's a windy day?
Even if it's a windy day.
Okay.
Probably not that windy, but yeah.
Well, next question. Sunny day or stormy day?
Ooh, that's a hard one for me. I do the weather and all. I love a good storm, but I love the sun. I don't think I could pick. That was a hard one.
Okay.
I can't pick.
Early bird or night owl?
Yes, night owl.
Yeah. You tend to stay up late and work late?
I tend to stay up late. I do wake up early too, though. So, but I prefer to sleep late if I could, later than 7. So I guess I can't.
7, the day's half over already.
Really, you're an early bird.
I'm usually up like at 5:30, 6 a.m. And last one, suitcase vacation or backpack vacation?
Suitcase vacation, for sure. In fact, I just came back from a vacation and I brought the biggest suitcase ever, which was a very big mistake. But, I could barely carry it up the 3-floor walk up. But it was a good vacation, Paris. So,
nice.
The suitcase was a little bit like, okay, we're going to check it this time. So it was a long trip. So I was like, okay. And it was, I'd like a smaller suitcase.
Good. And last question, Cherie, what's the weather?
I did a weather report today, actually.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did. I posted on P Townie. That's my weather posting station, but and sometimes on my own. But it looks like it's going to be a little cloudy, and we might get a little snow later tonight. But it's not going to amount to much.
What's your connection with the weather? Because
living out here.
I've seen you on. It's once in a while it shows up on Facebook, on Provincetown Community Space or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm always very entertained by it. But what's your connection to it?
I don't know. I've been doing them for like 10 or 12 years. It's like a long time actually now. And I look back and I'm like, wow, that's, yesterday's news today. But I don't know, like when I moved to the Cape, I'm like, even with my artwork, like there's always a horizon line in everything I do, and it's like, there's always like, I'm always looking at the weather. I'm lucky enough to live by the water, on the water. And I'm just always, I'm totally conscious of the weather all the time. And, I think everybody is who lives out here. But
because we're in the middle of the ocean. There's a lot happening here.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot, it could be like crazy weather here and sunny in Truro. You never know. So I don't know. I just like the weather. So I've always just been focusing on it. And then I started doing these weather reports and people loved them. And they were like, when are you going to do the weather? People would call me and like, could you go to my house in Truro and, by Ballston Beach and do the weather so I could see what's happening with the ocean? I'm like, oh my God, this is starting to get crazy, But I do love it. And it's kind of fun. It just is like a fun thing.
Yeah.
Like people on the street are like, oh my God, you're the weather woman. Like claim to fame.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to learn about all these fantastic programs we went through today, what's the website?
The website is www.castlehill.org. O-R-G. Everything's on there. Pretty much all the summer classes are up. We have to add two more like today, but everything's up. Spring and fall as well. We have a lot of fall classes. We have Mitchell Johnson coming. We have a lot of really good. I forgot to mention Judy Pfaff is coming back this year. She's a great artist. She's doing a master class, and we're doing a solo show in the gallery of her work.
And
I'm
what
very
does she do?
excited. She's an installation artist.
Okay.
She does everything. But
Mhm.
she does painting. She does sculpture. She's a welder. She does it all. Yeah, she's wild. It's wild. Just a show you're going to want to see.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
really
And
amazing.
in the summer, it's hard for me to leave
Yeah.
town because, I own a gallery, so I'm stuck there.
Yeah.
Is Castle Hill also on social media?
Yes, Castle Hill Truro is the Instagram account, and same as Facebook, Castle Hill Truro.
Well, I hope this brings a lot of students your way because it's a wonderful place to learn. You have so much to play with. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a
And
lot to do.
the skills I've learned at Castle Hill have really transformed my practice as an artist and transformed my gallery as well.
Oh, that's great.
Because one thing I love being able to do is in my gallery offer products that are accessible to everyone. Not everyone can come and buy a $2,000 painting,
Mhm.
but if I have prints, if I have smaller works, then this is something people can bring home, something
Mhm.
that's handmade. And these are skills I learned at Castle Hill.
Nice,
Yeah.
that's excellent. So happy about that.
Well, thank you very much for joining me today.
Yes, thank you so much, Gaston.
And thank you all also for joining us. Have a great day.
Thank you.